Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for attending the Shaw at the Shaw Auditorium tonight. This is the June 11th, 2012 open meeting of Council starting at 7 p.m. And if I could, I'd like to call on Ms. Harrison to announce any of the late items, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Add item 4B, minutes of the special meeting of Council held 2012 June 7th. Add item 6D, Mayor's Report, Performing Arts BC. Add item 8C2, Delegation, Mr. Fred Taylor, regarding DP 777-1451 Estefan Road. Add item 8D1, Delegation, Mr. Fred Taylor, regarding DP 780-360/370 Westwood Road. Add item 8H, Official Community Plan Amendment Application OCP 67, General Amendments Report and Amended Bylaw regarding consideration of Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 2012, number 6500.017. Add item 11D, Bylaws, Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2012, number 4500.018.
He's ready, isn't he?
Add item 11E, Bylaws, Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2012, number 4500.021.
Thank you very much. And I'll just ask if we could have the adoption of the agenda as amended, please.
Your Worship,
Sorry?
I wanted to move
Yes.
item 12, which is the correspondence piece, and the delegation, Mr. Barry O'Neill, to the front of the agenda. I guess maybe to
Okay, and Ms. Harrison, what point would we place that on? Just at the end of 5?
You could either do it before or after the Mayor's Report. Either one would be appropriate.
Okay.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Okay, so all in favor of moving it forward? Opposed? Motion carries.
Your Worship, I'd like to add an issue about Global BC.
Okay, please do.
About Global BC.
And this is going to be a report that you're going to be introducing. And so why don't we have you just follow, just under let me see, have you follow the Mayor's report on it, and we'll have Mr. O'Neill prior, and maybe we can have a little separation that way.
Excuse me, Your Worship, I didn't catch the item that's been added.
It's Global BC.
Global BC.
Just
Weekend news.
hang on. Do you want to have another go with your microphone now?
Oh, did you get that, Ms. Harrison?
Yes, Global BC, and that's following item 6.
That'll be, sorry, I'm over a page here.
Yes.
That'll be after 6 is correct. Following 6.
And Your Worship, I believe that Councillor Bestwick had an item to add, a notice of motion.
Yes, I do.
Yes,
Please, go
yes,
ahead.
Your Worship, I would like to provide a notice of motion at the appropriate time later in the agenda.
Okay, we will call on you to do so. Okay, so the adoption of the agenda as circulated, and Councillor Greaves, I think you're going to move.
Yes, I'll move the adoption agenda as amended.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And the adoption of the minutes, please, as circulated.
Adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting held May 28, 2012.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Also, the adoption of the minutes of the special meeting of council held June 7, 2012.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, and we're going to move into presentations first, and I think this is where we'll start with our...
Excuse me, Your Worship, I believe this is where Council had moved the item of correspondence. Is that correct?
Okay, and that was just going to follow the presentations then. I guess my question to you, Ms. Harrison, are we going to do these presentations first, or would your preference be to hear...
My understanding was that you had wanted the correspondence to come prior to the Mayor's report, which is where...
But after presentations?
We have no presentations
These
per
ones will
se.
come on later. So, let's see. Mr. Neal, you're... Where is he now? Barry? Oh. So, welcome, sir. Mr. Barry O'Neill is the president of QPBC. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me an opportunity to speak on what has become a very important issue to not only community members in Nanaimo, but certainly across the country and across the globe. I understand that there was a motion originally passed by Council to talk about blue communities and what impact it might have, and I understand from that that there was some meetings or some questions that were to be asked. I want to clear one thing up, I suppose, and by the time that's over, I'll be over my shyness. As for the comments that were made by Nestle, or a spokesman from Nestle, I can assure you, as I've assured lots of people, that there really is no conspiracy here. And in regards to what he says about Maud Barlow, I'm not sure that I've ever met anybody who really has as much enthusiasm around local governments and their ability to make decisions as Maud, and I've had the opportunity on many occasions to talk to Maud and talk with Maud at presentations. So I wouldn't be overly concerned about what CUPE's conspiracy is around water and Nestle's, nor would I be at all concerned about what the comments were made about Maud Barlow. I think that although I am from out of town, the town I'm from is actually Lanceville, so it's really not considered as being the out-of-town expert that you sometimes hear of. But I still am very proud of Nanaimo. I grew up in Nanaimo and know some of you and seen some of you at events that I often make myself present at and have an opportunity to speak to local governments. I want to say, as people have heard before, that I really do believe that local governments are really the ones that can make change. And there's a reason for that, and I say it quite often, is because you're very, very accountable. And if you make a bad decision at this meeting tonight, you'll probably see somebody tomorrow morning at the hockey rink or at the grocery store, and they'll tell you what we think. So you have support from myself and our organization. As many of you know, I've been working with communities for a long time. And this initiative, I think, is all about that. It's really all about showing leadership to those that are perhaps concerned but don't know which direction to take. And I think that you could have an awful big influence in becoming a part of Blue Communities and what the Council of Canadians is doing, what many in the United States are doing, and certainly other communities in British Columbia have done already in recognizing that water truly is a human right. If it's not a human right, then I'm not sure what is. I respect your opinion that there are some questions that went unanswered. And I got them in my office some weeks ago talking about things like legitimate questions. What kind of liability would the city have if, in fact, we implemented some of the things that happen? If we said to, let me not use the word too many times, that Nestle may not be in the right position. And I understand that Nestle is not going to go under as a result of a decision you might make to keep bottled water out of public facilities. I think there's a bigger message there, and it's to the community. And it tells citizens that if small a problem as the opponents of Blue Community might think, there still is an impact. And I think anything that we can do as a community to make that awareness come forward, I think that that's better on us. That Nanaimo always was, in my view, a lighthouse around making things happen. New things, some not popular and some popular, and I think this is one issue that your council, you and citizens of Nanaimo could make a statement, and a good one, around the whole issue of bottled water. Now, I can say that there are any number of opposition. There are many debates. If you Google anything, of which I do periodically, you'll see that there are all kinds of pros and cons. But in particular, the questions you had around the liabilities, I believe, in all the work that we've done, and our legal department has had a look at this, there is really no obligation for you to do the kinds of things that might be proposed that you would have to do in making water a human right, or a statement that it is a human right. So I think that your concerns are legitimate, but I think there's much more to gain here. Just bringing up the awareness in public facilities that there is no bottled water there doesn't mean there's a ban on bottled water. Of course, I wouldn't mind entertaining or getting in that debate as well. But for the time being, I think that it's appropriate that this council lead the way on Vancouver Island. You have a partner now in Victoria that has made the decision that they would respect what's happening around this issue. As well, some of the issues around contracts, I leave that to you to do better. I know I've done a couple of contracts in my life and certainly know that they do expire. If there's an ability for us to do that and make a statement, I think, to the public that recycle is still the third R, that there's things that we can do to make that recycling work, and we all know the evidence is that, yeah, there are some great uses for bottles in recycling, but we also know that only about half of them, if half, actually end up not in the landfill. So there's a lot of work for us to do, and I think the statement you make, in accordance to everything that I've read in the papers, including polling, that the citizens in this community, I think, in my community and other communities on Vancouver Island in particular, want to see something like this happen. That 70% of the public would support a position the council would take around the non-use of bottled water in public facilities. I just think it's a wonderful opportunity for local government to make a decision, and no other government. You still have the ability to do that without much interference. And I am sure, as I said, that you won't hear anything from Nestle's wanting to go under protection as a result of your decision to ban bottled water. But I really think it is a very, very good idea, one that I will be proud of course, and I'm sure that most of the people in this room be proud of, and the community be proud that you're making a move, not, some would say, significant, but enough to send a message that this is an important issue, that we need to do something different for our kids and their grandkids. So I would suggest or hope that you can support the motion. I certainly would be very proud of my community if you could. And I again want to thank you for your time with the presentation that I made tonight. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neal. What I was going to say is that we're waiting for a staff report on this precise subject, and I think we'll have it within about 2 weeks. So council will be revisiting at that point and making the decision. But we do have 3 questions and maybe more. So, Councillor Brennan. No, that was... Not sure? Okay, Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. Evening, Mr. O'Neill. Thank you very much. You do realize that there were 3 parts to the motion that we are asked to deal with. Water as a human right. Obviously, I don't think there's anybody on this council that would have an issue with that. The bottled water might still be a question to some. The question I had about the middle one was to do with public ownership of the watershed. And I can tell you that Mr. Manley of the local chapter of the Council of Canadians put my mind at ease there, but I'd like to have that feeling confirmed by you. What does it mean to you as far as the watershed is concerned?
Well, I don't follow the local politics every day. I don't get here very much. But I don't think that there's any danger there. Some had suggested to me, does that mean that we have to buy the watershed? Well, it would be absurd to think that should happen, that there's any precedent set to make that happen anywhere else on other issues, not just bottled water. So I don't believe that there is any significant threat around you having to buy the watershed. It's similar to what we do in healthcare. We promise in Canada to give people healthcare, but we don't promise it for free to everybody in the world. And I don't think that we have to get into any more capital cost like watersheds. I believe myself that we should be spending a lot more time on our infrastructure around water fountains and those kinds of things. When I thought about this on the way in, I thought about you changing policy or making policy on something, and it reminds me of a firefighter friend from Nanaimo that told me once, when council decided that the policy they needed to change was they were no longer going to rescue cats out of trees. And he said to me, you know, it was a pretty significant policy at the time, but for weeks after, you just didn't see that many skeletons in trees. So I guess cats made it down. And using policy or changing things and watershed kinds of things, I think are perhaps chancy, but I don't think you're in any danger of people suggesting that you buy the watershed.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Kip.
Well, thank you. One of my questions was asked by Councillor Padgett I'm shifting on this one, and this is a mental shift.
Give a shift. That's
I
good.
do give a shift, and I appreciate the fact of the work you put into this, and I support the fact of blue communities. I was concerned earlier about losing the blue community and the watershed ownership and the human right issue over the bottles, but I'm quite satisfied with the way we look at it. The only concern that's been brought to my attention was a woman with a health issue. She talks about heavy metals and things in the water systems and that, and so she has to drink what she considers a very mineral and pure water. The reverse osmosis systems in the community public facilities to fill bottled water with, do you support those? Or do you
Well, I'm not sure how you manage those kinds of things, but I think in any policy or any one position somebody might take, there's always the one-off or two-off. And I think it's up to facilities, in fact, if that's a concern, as we do in conferences and other things where people have some disadvantage, do what we can to make that happen, and we do it on a one-off thing. I'm not sure that it's going to be a major problem, certainly not a problem that your staff couldn't deal with on a one-off situation. I wouldn't want to see anybody denied access to a public facility as a result of a policy that was put in place. But I'm not sure I can ever recall a time, even when the issues that were being discussed or the policy that was being proposed was significant on a very small number of people, that we didn't, in fact, do what we can to make sure that those specific issues were dealt with.
Thank you very much. And one further follow-up on a different, are you coming back to Nanaimo to do a 10% shift workshop?
Well, I have a proposal. I'm very busy doing the shift, and I would hope that I get an opportunity to come and see council again. I will leave my card so people can be prepared. On the back of my card, people will get an opportunity to see our latest video. I really do hope that I can convince Nanaimo that they need to be one of the star players in the 10% shift. It's working very well for communities all across Canada, and certainly the work I've done in the United States would tell me Nanaimo really is the place to kick this thing off the ground. And others are right now, and I'm hoping we can get in front of it in Nanaimo.
Thank you.
Good. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. O'Neill, for coming and doing your presentation. One of the questions that I do have is in regards to the second resolution and publicly financed and owned and all of the other jazz that's associated with it. Should the city have to purchase water, for example, from somewhere else other than how we already acquire water, how would that impact the resolutions that we're passing?
Well, I don't think that there's any less obligation from some. That it's my view and the view of many that there are a couple of things, a couple of core services that municipalities supply to their constituents, and one certainly is water. And the issue of privatization in water is significant. And I think that what we need to do, and people have asked me this question before on how we'll make a difference in infrastructure, and water plays a huge part of that, a bigger part than most of us know. I would say that anything that we can do to make sure that water in and itself stays in public hands, it won't always be perfect, but the water in Nanaimo is pretty damn good, that we should really do that. We should make sure that happens. One, it's a hell of a lot cheaper in the long term, and I would rather see a local city council controlling water infrastructure in my community than a board in France like any of the huge U.S. filter or any of those. I really believe, and I think that most people believe, that although I'm not sure that any of you, because I certainly am not perfect, but I have a great feeling for local governments maintaining, providing, and monitoring and governing of public services, in particular, like water.
Follow-up. Thank you for what you said there, but it still didn't answer my question, and I'll try and say it again. Okay. And should the city have to purchase water from a company, would that have any impact on the resolution that we're passing, such as the second one?
I can't imagine that. I can't, and maybe that's why I don't understand your question. I can't imagine that ever happening following issues like water in Nanaimo and landfill, that we have the ability within ourselves. I don't understand where we would buy water from. That would be, in my view, a significant challenge that needed to be dealt with. But certainly, I think that there is an opportunity, and has always been an opportunity, and we've always come through on making sure that water in Nanaimo was public and was public administered, and where we need to make upgrades to that infrastructure, I think that we owe it to the next generation to do just that.
So hypothetically, let's say
Hypothetically, I love that stuff.
we had to buy water from Save-On Foods, for example, and they had a huge amount of water that the city, let's say, runs out of water, and we have to buy it from Save-On Foods. Would that contravene the second resolution?
Or let's say you had to buy water from Harmac or something like that.
Maybe that could be an option.
I really do appreciate you picking on a Canadian grocery or BC grocery store, and I think that's a good start in the previous discussion. No, I'm not sure whether or not that can be considered, knowing the status in particular of what Harmac was. Well, let's just say hypothetically it was Harmac you might be talking about. And if that's the case, I think that there's opportunity to work within partnerships, public-public partnerships, to make that happen. And as we've seen in Powell River, that doesn't always work out quite as people might think it, because there's all kinds of variables when you get involved. And I'm not knocking, with all respect to Harmac, I really think they've done spectacular with their process. But if you look just a little bit further on Vancouver Island or on the mainland, but we consider Vancouver Island, what's happened at Powell River, as a result of their proposal to move into with a large company for water purposes in the Powell River area, you see there's some bumps and grinds that we don't often recognize, like what happens if you put millions of dollars into a system and you see what happened to that organization in Powell River. So there's still lots of talk about that. I don't think that anybody in Nanaimo, I'm certainly not at all shy of sitting down and talking about that, but I think we need to do everything we can, everything that we can to make sure that water, in particular water, is publicly owned, operated, and financed. And I would bet you that you can almost do it cheaper than any private company can do it anyway. That's a whole new presentation.
So no is the answer. So no is the answer.
What's the answer?
No is the answer.
Oh, is it?
To number, well, I'm sorry. I mean, no is the answer.
Well, I tell you what, I think we've beaten this in the ground, so we got one more.
Thank you.
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a question for you,
Okay.
Mr. O'Neill. I just want, before people become alarmed and think that they, if they had a particular need for water that was somehow treated and had the minerals removed, that they wouldn't be able to purchase that at a grocery store and bring it onto city premises. There's nothing in this bylaw that prohibits you bringing a bottle of water onto a city premise. It would just, you would just have to be prepared if you had particular needs to bring the water with you and make sure that you were prepared, because under this bylaw you wouldn't have bottled water available. But it certainly wouldn't prohibit someone from bringing their own water to events or to facilities.
Take more than one policy change to change the world.
Yeah.
Good point. And on that happy note, we'll thank you for your speech tonight. It was very, very good, very pointed. And, you know, I always like the way you address the crowd. You know, you start off slow and wind up well, and well done indeed. So I don't think there's any doubt, well, possibly with the possibility of Councillor Anderson, I don't think there's any doubt in the rest of us here, your position on that, and I appreciate that.
Thank you very much for your time. I had some great notes here that I had.
That's to be the next meeting. Okay. Maybe in this case, Councillor Kipp, do you want to receive the delegation here? Let's just do this one especially here. You're moving it? No, not yet. You're just going to receive this delegation. And it's redundant. Thank you. All those in favor. So now we're going to go into the Mayor's report, and we have an update on the strategic plan to start with. And Councillor Kipp and I are going to do kind of a Mutt and Jeff thing on this thing. We'll start off with the update. We'd like to thank all of those who came out to participate in the community forum on June the 6th. Public input is essential to help council make important decisions on strategic priorities, for the next 5 years and beyond. And it was clear from the participants at the forum that were highly engaged in the process of reviewing the draft strategic plan. The community input received at the forum will be carefully considered, and many of these ideas will be incorporated into the next draft of the strategic plan. And Councillor Kipp, did you want to expand on that a bit for us, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. The updated draft will be on the strategic planning blog on this Friday, the 15th, at which time another invitation to participate in the final community survey will be distributed. This will be the last opportunity for the community members to participate before the plan is finalized. We're still on target to have the plan presented and approved at the July 9th City Council meeting. And for more information or to sign up again for the final survey, visit the strategic planning blog on the city website. You can send your email to Our Voice, Your Voice, RNNIO. I'm digging out my other notes. Just want to say that the council has done some amazing sessions, and the ones that in my last term and this term, we have had some tremendous debate and discussion at our meetings, and really intricate. The session the other day on June the 6th, that was phenomenal. We actually went longer at the table sessions. Although I would have liked to see way more people. It was a Stanley Cup hockey night, and that does make a difference in Canada, despite the fact it's 2 American teams. But we did get some really good focus. The people were truly engaged. We had to do some second group organization so people could get involved in other workshops, so it was really good. So please get involved in this final survey, and council will hopefully be, tomorrow we have a strategic planning meeting going over some of the information. It'll be on the blog on the 15th. And again, thank you very much to the staff and the consultants. Terry Hartley's been doing a ton of work on it. I know she's going to have to catch up over the summer on her regular duties, but I appreciate the input we've had in the public, and it'll be very soon now we'll adopt our strategies. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kipp. And again, you know, the appreciation to council for the effort you put into it, Councillor Kipp, because it was a big job, and I think the results are going to be well received by everyone. The next item is the City of Nanaimo wins Provincial Planning Award, and the City of Nanaimo recently adopted Zoning Bylaw 4500, which has been honoured with an Excellence in Planning Award in the category Award of Excellence in Planning Practice for Cities by the Planning Institute of British Columbia, PIBC. The award was presented to City of Nanaimo planner Mr. David Stewart at the 2012 PIBC Annual Conference in Harrison Hot Springs on 2012 May 31. The PIBC Awards program recognizes the best professional planning work undertaken across British Columbia and the Yukon each year. The City of Nanaimo's new zoning bylaw represents hundreds of hours of effort by planning staff working with focus groups, neighbourhood representatives, the Chamber of Commerce, the Plan Nanaimo Advisory Committee, and of course City Council. This is Nanaimo's second provincial planning award in 4 years. The city's downtown design guidelines previously won a PIBC award in planning excellence in 2009. So now I'd like to ask if Mr. David Stewart and Mr. Andrew Tucker are present. If you, well, I know you are, I can see you. So if you want to join me out in front here, we'll make the presentation here.
Don't look so stiff, Dave. Come on, relax.
Well, reading my notes, oh, I'm supposed to stand right here. I was given the instructions where the X is. There's no X. Anyway, I just wanted to say congratulations to both and to many others who worked on this bylaw. And I know bylaw 4500, was a huge undertaking. So, Andrew, thank you very much. And David, who's going to do the holding here? He's going to do the holding. You're going to do the holding? I see. It's all seniority. Do you want to say a few words on that? No obligation, but you can if you wish. No, that's fine. Okay. Anyway, David, you're not going to jump into it now, are you? I just want to say that on behalf of City Council and certainly all of Nanaimo, we're so proud to receive this award, and we want to thank you both for all the efforts that went in to make this such a success. Andrew, thank you very much. David, you're going to be able to? Thank you very much. You also, oh, here we go.
Just as cheap.
Oh, I have another presentation to make here, but I understand the recipients are somewhat shy, so we won't go into all the details. But the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators Long Services Recognition Awards, and I'm pleased to announce that our City Manager, Mr. Al Kenning, and our Assistant City Manager, General Manager of Corporate Services, Mr. Holmes, were both recognized by the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators, CAMA, C-A-M-A, for their many years of municipal service in management capacity as either Chief Administrative Officer or reporting directly to a Chief Administrative Officer. Mr. Holmes was recognized for his commitment of 15 years of municipal service in a management capacity, and Mr. Kenning was recognized for his commitment of 30 years of municipal service in a management capacity. Thank you to Mr. Kenning and Mr. Holmes for your ongoing support of our municipal profession. The City of Nanaimo greatly appreciates the valued contributions that you both make to the City of Nanaimo on a daily basis. So on behalf of Council, thank you both very much. For the interest of those present, I did ask both of them if they'd like to say a few words. The answer was no. So we'll just carry on with the next presentation, and that is I'm just holding up, sorry for that. I can switch over if you want. No, I think, because I thought I was going to be going around the other side again, but I'm just holding this up. This is kind of like watching the Oscars here. Nanaimo was host of the Provincial Festival of Performing Arts 2012. The Upper Island Music Festival Society was very proud when Nanaimo was chosen for the very first time in its history as the host community for the 2012 Provincial Festival of Performing Arts. This festival was held from May 27th to May 31st, 2012 in the Bevan Park, the Port Theatre, and other venues in Nanaimo. And for the stats, it involves competitors from 35 local festivals around British Columbia, from Victoria to Fort St. John, Cranbrook, and Prince Rupert. 500 competitors and participants in disciplines including classical voice, musical theatre, piano, strings, woodwinds, brass, guitar, chamber music, speech, arts, ballet, modern dance, and stage dance. More than 3,000 spectators and audience members attended. More than 100 volunteers were involved. And again, you know, Nanaimo came forward with the necessary volunteers, as it always does. And an estimated economic gain of well over $100,000 for the community. So I will just show you, and maybe just read very quickly what it says. Performing Arts Host City, to the PABC Board, in recognition of your dedication and commitment to the Performing Arts Provincial Festival presented by the Vernon Host Committee. And there's been Vernon, Prince George, Penticton, Burnaby, Prince Rupert, Duncan, Kamloops, and now for 2012, Nanaimo. So we will see that done. Yeah, for sure. Maybe I'll put this down here, out of the room. And now we'll call on Councillor Kipp. I believe you had a statement you wanted to make now, or make an observation?
Yes, Your Worship. Right now there's a contest on Global BC, which is an affiliate of Shaw, the channel that we're broadcast across, the owner and company. You can log on to the Shaw or Global BC website right now and vote for Nanaimo. We are 300 votes ahead in hosting the Global Weekend News. So what that would mean, that we'd go all across British Columbia, as they would host the weekend news here for a Saturday and a Sunday and show different parts of Nanaimo, the beautiful landscape we have, the economic development things that are going on. So if the community would like to win this and have Global BC in our community to broadcast from our beautiful town, go on the Global BC website, onto the contest, and vote for Nanaimo. And hopefully we can host it and show British Columbia how beautiful Nanaimo is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good point. Moving into 7A, administration requests for proposals. Do we need to receive the delegation? Requests for proposals for legal services exceeding $250,000. Staff recommendation of council authorize staff to proceed with issuing the request for proposal for a legal services contract that may exceed $250,000.
Staff's recommendation.
Moved in second. I see no discussion on this. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into Community Safety and Development, RA 296, part of 3500 Rock City Road. Staff recommendation that Council 1 receive the report pertaining to Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2012 number 4500.024, and 2, direct staff to secure a covenant for no vegetation disturbance area prior to the adoption of the bylaw should Council support the bylaw at third reading.
Move recommendation. Second.
recommendation 1 and 2. And moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Under the bylaw, that zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.024 to rezone part of 3500 Rock City Road from Townhouse Residential R6 to Comprehensive Development District Zone 9, CD9, in order to develop a 15-lot subdivision, passed first reading. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.024 passed second reading. Moved. Second. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 8B, the official community plan amendment application OCP 65, rezoning application RA 291 at 1850 and 1860 Dufferin Crescent. Staff recommendation that Council 1 receive the report pertaining to official community plan amendment bylaw 2012 number 6500.018. 2, receive the report pertaining to zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.023. And third and final, direct staff to secure the following prior to adoption of bylaw number 4500.023. Should council support the bylaw at third reading, A, parking and access agreement with the owners of the property at 1800 Dufferin Crescent, and B, the community contribution. So
Recommendation.
moved and seconded. Okay, and discussion, we have Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. I just have one question for staff. It indicates that is also to provide a community meeting room. Could you please just provide me a little bit of detail on what who can access the community meeting room, its size, its capacity, and its capabilities?
Mr. Tucker, you're on.
Yes, Your Worship. The building is a two-story building where the upper floor will be a liquor retail store and the lower floor will be the community meeting space. What the applicant is proposing is to make that space available to local groups in the community who may have an interest in hosting their meetings there. Groups such as Nanaimo Area Land Trust or the Estuary Management Committee or neighborhood committees. And they would be available to rent that space as part of making use of this mixed-use building. It's approximately half of the building. Building has a total area of about 936 meters squared, so it's approximately half of that is the floor space of the meeting room. And if there are questions of the applicant is present tonight if there are further details.
Just a follow-up, Worship. Is just and I'm in support of this. I'm not questioning it. I just want to be clear. Are minors permitted to go into the community meeting space by chance, or?
Yes, that's my understanding that they would be allowed.
Thank you.
Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Worship. My question was similar to Councillor Bestwick's. The RCM Police had some concern about the youth use of the meeting space as a crime prevention problem, perhaps, hanging around the liquor stores. And I'm not sure whether the applicant is willing to speak to that or not, but there may be, being the RCM Police has addressed it, some concern. So,
If I might, just to staff, did we receive a support letter or indication from the RCMP on this matter?
In terms of the meeting space, my understanding is that the meeting space would be for organized events, so it would be like the monthly meeting of one of those committees I mentioned earlier. It would not be for just random rentals. It would be more of a support for community groups that was being proposed by the applicant.
thank you.
Okay, Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. When this came before the Plan Nanaimo Advisory Committee, now the Nanaimo Advisory Planning Committee, NAPSI, I think we might be calling it, a reference was made to the distances required between this proposed place and the nearest next liquor outlet. And I know a reference was made to the Quarterway Pub, and the distance there was, can you refresh my memory how far that was?
The distance that if they are within 1 kilometer of another similar facility, then they are not permitted to receive their pre-clearance. This facility sits almost just on the outside of that 1 kilometer radius, and going northwards, there is an LRS at the corner of Northfield Road and Bowen Road, and again, this is just outside that 1 kilometer radius. So the site does meet the criteria provided by the province.
Thank you.
Councillor Kipp.
Yeah, Your Worship, I speak in favour of the application. I know it to be one of the, probably the greenest liquor store in British Columbia, just by the design of the building and things. It's, I'll just say this, the community room is only about 107 square meters of the building. There's a private access on Dufferin Crescent, and it's a lower level access. I was on the advisory design panel committee meeting. The liquor store is accessed on the upper floor in the back corner, so they hope to have interaction. There was some concern voiced about it, but it is about public meetings and not drop-in centers or anything like that. And I know the owner of the building is a phenomenal community person who is volunteers in lots of organizations, and one of the reasons he pushed for this community contribution was to give space to a number of local community groups, and I speak in favor of the proposal.
Okay, I see no further discussion on this. So on the motion, we will question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That's 1, 2, and 3. OCP amendment bylaw, that the official community plan amendment bylaw 2012 number 6500.018 to redesignate lands from light industrial to corridor to permit a mixed-use development including a liquor store and community meeting room pass first reading. A second? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Patchy, did you have? Okay. And 2, that the official community plan amendment bylaw 2012 number 6500.018 pass second reading.
Motion.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into zoning amendment bylaw, that zoning amendment bylaw number 2012 number 4500.023 to rezone from high-tech industrial I3 to community corridor COR3 to allow for a mixed-use development pass first reading. Move. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That the zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.023 pass second reading. Moved. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Development permit DP 777 at 1451 Estevan Road. We have 2 delegations in attendance that would like to speak to that matter. Mr. Eric Ching, an architect, and Mr. Fred Taylor. Mr. Ching, if you're present, sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I'm Eric Ching with Urban Design Group Architects in Vancouver, and I'm accompanied tonight by Mr. Jason Hendricks to represent the owners of the Terminal Park Shopping Center on 1451 Estevan Road. We simply would like to make ourselves available tonight for any questions that we may be able to assist in answering. We've been working with the City Planning Department as well as with the diligent leadership of the Breach and Hill Neighborhood Association over approximately a period of 12 months to arrive at a development proposal that is in keeping with the goals of the city's OCP and the Newcastle and Breach and Hill Neighborhood Plan. We now have a distinct opportunity to build potentially the precursor to the High Street vision for Estevan Road in this area of the Breach and Hill neighborhood. And this is in support of the sustainable design strategy of building compact, vibrant communities. This opportunity is made possible by the owner's successful bid to provide 12,000 square feet of office space across 3 stories to the Vancouver Island Health Authority around the beginning of this year. The owners have a narrowing window within which to remove all the subjects to their proposal and are looking forward to the continuing support of the Planning Department and the Breach and Hill Neighborhood Association, as well as to the Council's endorsement tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Was the relationship with the Resident Association well received? Did you have any extensive discussion with them?
Yes, we've had extensive discussions with them over the course of as I said, approximately 12 months, and I do believe that we were well received by the association.
Well, actually, Terminal Park Shopping Centre must be one of the original shopping centres in Nanaimo, dating back, I would guess, close to 50 years. So,
Yes, they've been a member of the community for quite some time.
yeah, well done. Well, good luck with that one, and I see Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for your presentation. One question, is VIHA the lone occupant
Yes.
of the venue?
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
Councillor Pachi.
I'm really happy with this happening, and particularly with the emphasis on Estevan, because that needs that. But can you tell me a little bit more about what will happen on the other side, on the back of it, as far as the shopping centre is concerned?
Yes, there's actually this proposed office building initially was intended to be a one retail building development on this site. And as I mentioned, after extensive discussions with the neighborhood and the city planning department, it was made clear to us that the goals of the neighborhood association and the neighborhood plan particularly, that the city and the neighborhood would like for the goals of these plans to be respected. So the owner recognized this, and as I said, we in November of last year, they had an opportunity to submit a bid for 12,000 square feet of office space for VIHA. The owners felt that this would be a great opportunity to deliver to the community a built form that was more in keeping with the neighborhood plan. So what's happened now is that a three-story office building of a higher density structure, so it's occupying a smaller footprint, 12,000 square feet across 3 levels, will be located at the corner, and then the remainder of the space west of that building, if we would go by true north, would be a 4,000 square foot single-story retail pad. So the retail component is still there, although in this latest iteration of the development proposal, it's now 2 buildings, one being office and the other being retail, complementing the existing retail use within the center.
Just to follow up, if I may, Your Worship, when you look at page 58 of our white pages and you look at the west elevation, I mean, I don't want to second-guess the design advisory panel. I'm sure they know what they're doing, but it looks kind of massive and unfriendly. How would you react to that kind of a statement?
Actually, the west elevation of the building is that component of the building with the lowest parapet height. That's number one. There is a tendency to be for the building to look massive because it is 3 stories in building height. What we've done is, and we've included this in the development permit application package, is that we've decided to treat this facade or this west elevation of the building with split-face concrete block. Split-face concrete block gives us an opportunity to introduce some depth to the face of the building, some texture, as well as some color. So we basically propose the use of concrete block along with the different profiles that are available and the different colors that are available to make to give that west facade a little bit more of interest. Now, having said that, that face of the building is the side of the building that's right adjacent to Save-On Foods, and it's separated by a pathway that, if I'm not mistaken, the city as well as Save-On would like to see with restricted access due to some issues that they've been encountering over the past couple of years.
Thank you.
We've had a staff comment in a second here, but I'm just going to ask, is this administrative offices solely for VIHA, or will there be any capacity to take people in, or will there be clients or customers coming into the building as well, or is it primarily just administration only?
Right. So the entire 12,000 square feet, actually 11,500 square feet to be exact, is going to be used by VIHA as a sole tenant. And this will be, if I'm not mistaken, their finance department.
Oh, I see.
That's moving into the building. Yes.
There won't be a large number of people coming and going and visiting and parking and all those issues.
I don't suspect that there will be.
Mr. Tucker, you had a comment, did you, sir?
Yes, Your Worship, and Mr. Ching got to it at the very end of his comments. The blank face, which is identified as the west elevation, backs directly onto the Save-On Foods building. So that's why it doesn't have any windows shown in that. It's the blank face that goes up against the Save-On, and he got to it at the end, but I was like trying to jump in.
Just going by the pretty pictures.
Remember that. So, Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Ching. Thank you, Mr. Ching.
Thank you.
You have taken the consideration of the Design Advisory Panel, had asked you to consider a lighting program between Save-On and the new building. Could you briefly describe? I don't see on the plans the type of program. Is it?
Yes, as a matter of fact, the lighting program predates this proposal. When we had the original development proposal as one retail building introduced for this site, the lighting plan or the lighting strategy to mitigate the SEPTED concerns along this side of the building was already in place. And as a matter of fact, that comment of the Design Advisory Panel was carried over to this project. So you've got an 8.5 by 11 sketch there, but it's a little bit hard to see. But you would notice three what looks like well, from this scale, dots.
Yes.
At the floor, and so that's where the intended location of the lights will be. These lights will be motion censored lighting, exterior lighting. I have to admit that it's going to be a bit of a challenge because the building is on the property line, therefore there is no structure or component of the structure can pass that line. And as you know, exterior wall-mounted fixtures are, at least 6 inches off of the face of the wall. So these will likely be recessed, motion-censored lights. What happens is if there's movement within that space, the lights activate. It's been shown in other conditions or other projects that motion sensor lights or motion triggered lighting is an effective deterrent to illicit activities. So what happens is if there was, for example, an RCMP member who would be around the area, they would know that in this particular space, that if the lights activate, there is activity that's not supposed to be there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we have Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Your Worship. This building is to house 60 employees, did I understand?
Sorry?
60 employees in this building?
60, yeah, about 60, yeah. About
I have no objection to the plan and the fact that you own that piece of property. I am disappointed that for this project here, we didn't consider downtown. We've got a great piece of property for sale.
We've heard that comment quite a number of times over the past 12 months.
But in the future, I'd certainly like to see, some consideration for downtown. We've got to get more people working and living downtown.
Right. That message has been communicated to us by the planning department, and we understand where the challenges are coming in for the city to revive the downtown core in Nanaimo, and particularly for this, I guess in this particular case, the bid for VIHA was seen by the owners as an opportunity to provide what the neighborhood wanted to see in terms of the urbanscape in this area of the neighborhood. So we will keep that in mind if there are other opportunities, by all means.
I would assume there's a parking component too that's advantageous in the location you've selected.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
I'm saying that parking should be convenient where you are too. at Terminal Park. There should be ample parking too.
Yes, as a
which may
matter-
be a challenge. I'm not trying to support the reason why you're not downtown. I agree with Councilor McKay, you should be downtown. But having said that, obviously there is ample parking where you are, and that had to be consideration.
That is a very valid point. As a matter of fact, there is and the planning department is very aware of this. I won't name the proponent, but there was an RFP that was circulated sometime last year for a similar size, I think if I'm not mistaken, 20,000 square feet of office space, and several Nanaimo developers were vying for them. 3 of them were our clients, and the parking requirement, believe it or not, was 1-to-1. 1 car per staff. And if there were 300 staff members projected for this building, they wanted 300 spaces exclusive for the staff members, and it almost rendered any of the projects just impossible. And true enough, it didn't push through last year.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate that, your time on that. I see no further questions. Thank you. We have the next delegation is Mr. Fred Taylor. Mr. Taylor.
Mayor Rattan and council members, I raised question to the construction of any additional buildings on an occupied full parking lot. It is time for underground parking for greater density. We need to go back to the drawing board when we're starting to create this sort of a situation and start making demands to replace parking lot here and parking for 60 employees by a floor of parking in the building. As you go look at that parking lot, it's full. Yes, this area may have a future as pedestrian-oriented design services, but just a minute. I'm reading your report. I am quite sure the proposed tenant employees will be from a central Vancouver Island regional area, not this local area there. And I think your Brecken Hill, et cetera, is to try and create local traffic and everything else. This is for a regional service, for employees, et cetera. There will be employee vehicles, possibly many VIHA-owned vehicles and customer vehicles, plus the removal of the parking people there now, people that park there now. I expect the proposed tenant will not generate bike queues, as your report suggests. The suggestion on-street parking is utterly stupid on Estevan Road, and it lacks sufficient width for parking, and a pedestrian sidewalk already exists on Estevan. This will only create hardship for car-oriented customer volume to the surrounding existing merchants. A report of parking demand for the existing area should be of review. Like when you built Terminal Park Shopping Center and all that there, what was the demand for parking to service all those buildings, TD Bank and everybody else? And in my opinion, City Council continues to ignore parking demands everywhere you look. Now, VIHA, you entertained not too long ago a duplex on Seafield Crescent, and they came and told you they'd be using some hospital parking, which is jammed. If you go look there, the cars were one behind the other, maybe 3-4 deep, into the driveways and carports of that duplex, and they also were renting parking spaces from the apartment block across the street. So we need to, keep thinking of the automobile and what are we going to do with it, as long as, you know, we want greater density. I'm not objecting to that. We just have to think better about accommodation of and what happens after. Are you going to put up with people trying to park on Estevan through the neighborhood across the street? I don't think we're giving it careful consideration. It fits the plan, possibly, for the local-oriented service, etc. but this is a regional thing, now that we know the tenant.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, go ahead.
Your Worship, a question to the staff. Page 58, on the drawing, if you orient the drawing in a landscape, it has the parking requirements down the bottom right-hand corner of the, people won't be able to read it, but it says total parking required is about 222 spaces, and then it says total parking provided on the total site of 353. And the parking ratio, 353 divided by the square footage times 1,000 is 5.73 spaces per 1,000 square feet. Is that, like it says on there, that 222 spaces required and we have 353 on the property? I've got it blown up on the computer screen so I could actually read it, but it's on the page. It says the total parking required after the calculation is 222 spaces, but it says total parking provided 353. And that's the correct figures, so that's over what is required. Okay, thank you.
The delegation, Mr. Chin is nodding in agreement, so, okay. I'll just point out for the benefit of those that can't see you at home there. Okay, Ms. Harrison, do we have a motion? Is it in?
Not at this time. It would be the staff recommendation that someone may wish to
So
move.
I'll just continue on with that. Thank you. The staff recommendation that council issue development permit DP 777 at 1451 Estevan Road with the following variances. Reduce the front yard setback from 7.5 meters to 0.7 meters. Reduce the side yard setback from 3 meters to 0 meters. And increase the maximum building height from 14 meters to 15 meters. Moved, second. Discussion. Councillor Kipp, are you on still? Okay. Councillor Brennan. Oh, okay. So there's no questions at that point. So all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Development permit DP 780 at 360-370 Westwood Road. And this is to be introduced by Mr. Swaby, General Manager, Community Safety and Development. Did they? Just put out a little bulletin in the LA Kings. Thank you for Councillor Bestwick. Just won the Stanley Cup. So you can turn off all your televisions now. We've got the news for you. And that
Everybody just tuned in to shop. Behave yourself and everybody's turned in.
You want to watch when you got home?
Your Worship, the development permit number 780 at 360-370 Westwood Road is a development permit which is requesting a variance to the riparian setback from 15 meters to 0 meters for a portion of the property, which represents a riparian setback variance of 15 meters. This development is a current property which is vacant and was farmed in the past, and the biologist that was hired by the applicant established that the ravine vegetation was suitable to vary the setback to the top of the bank. It's quite a steep ravine leading down to the creek, and it was felt that no further setback and remediation was required.
okay. Questions, Councillor Patchy?
Thank you, Worship. Well, I have to tell you, I have some really serious problems with this. I don't want to be guessing Toth and Associates, who are the assessment people who produced the report that's in your white pages. But I have gone through the extra trouble when I see a request for a variance in a riparian zone from 15 meters to 0, my antenna go up. And so I thought the advice over the last 3 or 4 days from 2 individuals whom I consider to be experts in the field. And I want to read you part of what they sent me with regards to Darrow Creek. Any development raises serious erosion issues. There already are erosion issues.
Just 1 second, sorry. Ms. Harrison?
I'm sorry to interrupt. We do have one delegation on this topic, so it may be appropriate to hear
Mr.
your
Taylor, I
delegation
forgot.
prior to
Okay.
the debate on the actual issue.
Alrighty, so the delegation we have is Mr. Fred Taylor. So, Mr. Taylor? Then we'll pick up the, sorry, and we'll pick it up from the top again here then.
I can do it again. Give me 2 options.
Mayor Rattan and council members, I take this opportunity to once again ask for recognition of our parklands, especially when accepted by the City of Nanaimo, dedicated as public park in perpetuity, commonly known in this case as Westwood Lake Park. 74RW is Westwood Lake Park, and I've been here many times trying to get cooperation to recognize it. And I don't agree with the comments in your staff report that this is a right-of-way for purposes of creating park trails, connect parks. It's Westwood Lake Park, dedicated on title. This is exactly the same language that lost us 74RW to the lake for $1 to the same owner. Big deal, given our parkland, Westwood Lake, dedicated on title for $1. A perfect walkway all the way to the lake. It's gone. It's got to stop. It's not a right-of-way for the purpose of creating park trailer connecting parks to the north and south. 74RW is greater status, dedicated parkland. I also ask for direction of the council to the city manager, general manager of community safety and development, director of planning and design for a review of the Westwood Lake lands in order to protect our parkland, as it has been very difficult to recognize such dedicated lands on a map or anywhere. Just ask yourself who promoted the loss of 74W to the lake. Staff. And then naturally the council agreeing, buying staff's support. 1985, a bylaw to sell some Westwood Lake Park for $1. Now, this property is already subdivision of lots. And in 1996, council had a bylaw from an engineering firm, not a biologist. Recognize the blue paper? That's how the city administrator does it. And that engineering firm concerned with that bank said there has to be a covenant on title for the subdivision of the land that we're looking at now. And I'd like to know where that covenant is. Of 13.5 feet beyond the top of that bank at the Westwood Lake end to 25 feet downstream, setback beyond the top of the bank. Where is the covenant that's supposed to be here for subdivision and creating those lots we're dealing with today from 1996? Agreement to subdivide that land and demand of the engineering firm Lukolich Geotechnical Engineering Limited, dealing with the original subdivision of these lots in 1996. There's all the demands, and does it okay the subdivision? It had to have a covenant on those lots for the distance setback from the top of the bank, which, don't forget, there was no 15 meter for creek protection or nothing in those days. This is for protection because of a bank, steep slope. And I've got the report, diagrams, everything.
Okay, did you have a question for the
Just
delegation?
one question for Mr. Taylor. What was the required setback in that engineer's report?
13.5 feet at the Westwood Lake end to 25 feet at the other end.
It was in feet at that time,
right?
Not meters.
As a covenant area, protection area, because of problems maybe with that bank.
Thank you. Well,
what happens if you had an earthquake and water that's going that down?
So, Your Worship, I may have a follow-up to staff then. I would like your comments on what Mr. Taylor just alluded to.
Thank you, Your Worship. We're confusing, there's two issues that we're talking about. One is the bank stability and the geotechnical requirements that may be applied at a subdivision. And the other is the setback requirement due to the aquatic habitat. They're two distinctly different issues. Mr. Taylor's referring to a report, I believe, I could be wrong, that's from a previous date, not dealing with the aquatic setback that's before you. Certainly, the approving officer in the subdivision would look at any geotechnical issues, and I think on page 62 actually shows the dotted line of the proposed geotechnical setback, which is setback from the top of bank, probably as per Mr. Taylor's comments for geotechnical reasons, not for aquatic reasons. So nothing would be disturbed, I would presume, past that line.
Well, that's, if you don't mind me butting in here, we're dealing with the aquatic setback, which I wanted to take that back to zero to the top of the bank, and yet you've got the geotechnical survey that's supposed to be on title as a covenant to protect it. Is it not on title? Staff have
And
lacked in
Your
putting
Worship,
it on
it is
title?
shown right on the site plan on page 62 and 63.
But is a covenant on title as per the demand of subdivision?
Your Worship, the subject of the report
1996.
is the aquatic variance. The other issues would be resolved through the subdivision process.
Okay.
That was in 1996. How long does it take?
Okay, well, we're going to move along, Mr. Taylor.
Well, we need 1996 done pretty quick.
I can see that 16 years ago. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
sir.
that would overrule what we're trying to do tonight?
Is there any more you can elaborate on this before we move along?
As with any regulations, they change over time. I have no idea how the information Mr. Taylor is talking about applies today. I can assure you, though, that the approving officer does not take lightly any geotechnical issues, and he reviews them as part of the subdivision. The aquatic issue was reviewed and is recommended by a professional biologist, a very reputable firm, and that's before council tonight for consideration.
Mr. Chairman, if the job was done right 16 years ago, covenants don't just fade off title. They're on title. Where are they? To protect that bank. And it's a condition of subdivision. Subdivision has happened. Where's the covenant?
Okay, Councillor Johnstone, go ahead, please.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Taylor?
You have a question for me?
No,
Yeah.
I was just going to ask Your Worship if it would be possible to delay making a decision on this evening in order that we have more concise information, or?
I think staff is of the opinion we already have that information, but they can elaborate themselves. Mr. Swaby.
Your Worship, it's always up to council whether you feel you need more information. That would be information that would not normally be required as part of an aquatic variance, but it's certainly within your purview to refer the application back.
So what's your decision?
I'd like to hear Councillor Pachi continue with his.
Well, what I was going to say is altogether separate from what Mr. Taylor has brought here, and what I might have to say might not mean anything if we need to deal with what he's alluding to as far as the covenant is concerned. So I would be supportive of a tabling until we have that information and have a staff report that explains what it is that we're up against.
It's Administrator's Report, July 29th, 1996, page
Okay,
11.
we need a mover and a seconder if we're going to table.
And so I'll move to table it until we have more information on this.
I'll second it, Your Worship.
So, sorry?
I got to tell him something else.
No, I know, I was just going to say that. So we're on that motion to table. All those in favor? Opposed? I'm opposed, and I guess I'm alone in the opposed, so we'll refer it back to staff. Next item is development permit DP 782 at 6115 Glacier Way. We have a delegation in attendance. Mr. Michael Hill, architect, will be in attendance to answer any questions on this. So maybe before we get down, Mr. Hill, assume you're okay. Just one second. I'm just going to read through here. Staff recommendation of council: issue development permit DP 782 at 6115 Glacier Way with the following variances: reduce the front yard setback from 6 meters to 4.5 meters, reduce the flanking side yard setback 4 meters to 2.4 meters, and reduce an aquatic setback from 15 meters to 7.5. And I wanted to include that just in case there's some questions that we may wish to ask the delegation concerning those 3 items. Okay, Mr. Hill, would you like to come down, sir? And did you have a presentation, or just want to?
No, I didn't have a presentation. I just wanted to be here if there was any.
Okay, fine. Councillor Bagchi, did you have a question for the delegation?
I have some comments to make. In the staff report, there is mention, I believe it's on page 78, about a covenant being in place on this particular item as well that would need to be corrected if we're going to approve this. And when I asked Mr. Tucker about it this afternoon, I didn't quite understand. It was a bit convoluted, so I wonder if you have a chance to, in easy layman's terms, to explain maybe what it is that we're doing.
I will attempt in easy layman's terms, but there is a lengthy history on this, so Your Worship, please bear with me. In 2003, there was a development permit issued for the overall development site, and included within that development permit back in 2003 was a variance of the setback on either side of the creek that runs through the subject, along the edge of the subject property. That was followed up by a second development permit in 2005, and at that time it was for the area on the west side of the creek, and that was to reduce the riparian area from 15 meters to 7.5 meters on the west side, but to retain the east side of the creek until such time as an application came forward. Tonight's application is to bring forward a new development permit for the subject property, and the proposal is to reduce the riparian setback to the same 7.5 meters as on the west side of the creek, so that there is protecting the riparian function for this segment of the creek. That said, this is not a fish-bearing creek. At the bottom of the hill at Glacier Way, it then goes into a storm sewer and is piped through the remainder of the Parkwood subdivision. So this is a recommendation to reduce the setback adjacent to the creek, but to allow for an upgrade of the riparian area because there are still riparian functions for this seasonal waterway.
May I follow up then? The outside person that I contacted on this one as well says the Creek request looks reasonable. There are stickleback and amphibians in Molokai Creek, but I'm not aware of any salmon or trout. That said, though, when you go to the corner of Glacier Way and Turner Road, where the creek goes under Turner Road, there are salmonid activity signs on both ends. Why would that be?
The signs are part of a public awareness campaign around protection of fish habitat generally. This particular application has had a specific report done to examine the riparian function, and as I say, it's piped once it leaves the site, and so further downstream, it's the concern about downstream impacts, potentially.
Okay. And a final one, Your Worship, if I may, and I could do that to the delegation. There are some concerns. I was also not able to find out where the entry and the exit is. Is it on Glacier? Is it on Turner Road? Because there are some people who have some traffic issues.
Pardon?
Where would be the entry and the exit of this subdivision?
For vehicles?
For vehicles.
All of the accesses come off of Glacier Way. There's about a 12% slope on the site, and the Turner Road units, the front door is at the sidewalk level. The parking is on the backside of the building one level down. So it's one of these situations where you come in the driveway off of Glacier Way and park underneath the building.
Okay. And the final follow-up to staff, then, if I may. With these, it was pointed out to me that at the corner of Glacier Way and Turner Road, there's a pedestrian crossing, which to the mind of some people is a very dangerous one as it is. With the extra traffic, particularly children who are on their way possibly from this new development on the way to Randerson Ridge School. Would there be a way of making absolutely sure that that's a safe crossing? Because that's the one they would be using if it comes out of Glacier Way.
I agree with your comments fully. I drive through that intersection every day, and there are always children crossing over to Randerson Ridge School, and it is a very heavily used crosswalk. So as with any crosswalk in the city, it's to try and ensure that the children are as safe as possible.
Thank you.
Okay, I see no further. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. Mr. Hill, just looking at the design drawings, are these, could you tell me a little bit more about the form and character of these? Are they the townhouse units?
They are townhouse units. We looked at the last development permit was for a condo mass style building. We felt that a row house-like collection of buildings was a better approach to this site and for the marketing and social needs of right now. So each unit, other than the ones that back onto the creek, have a front door on the road and a front porch area which is along the road. So we're trying to get that interface between the front of the units and the sidewalk to where it's a row. It's like a brownstone Boston kind of approach.
And on the property, there will be considerable amount of, assuming that they'll be for young families.
Could be virtually any kind of a family. We have 2 and 3 bedroom units.
And there'll be considerable amount of green space on the property, park space on the property?
There is a bit of, there's not a large amount. It's a funny shaped property. It's a triangle, and even the 7.5 meters, it takes quite a chunk of the area of the site. So we don't have a lot of area left after the riparian setback is in there. Our density is 19 units. The previous condo unit was about 26 units. So we're actually downgrading the density a little bit. And our area is well under what's allowable for that site.
So it was a 27-unit site without the setback, and now it's 19 with the adjusted request? And there's still less green space?
Mr. Tucker, you want to?
Yes, Your Worship. There was a previous development permit issued for the site for an apartment-style building, and that's what Mr. Hill is referring to in his comments. So this is fewer units on the site than under the previous development permit.
Yeah, our client really felt that this was a better neighborhood approach and had a lot of positive things for it.
Thank you.
Okay, I see no further questions.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. So, okay, any second? Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We're moving into Property Maintenance Bylaw number 1990, number 3704. It's requested that council hearing wishing to speak with respect to property maintenance of the properties listed below. Staff recommendation of council pursuant to Property Maintenance Bylaw 1990, number 3704, direct the owners of the following properties to remove the material as listed below from the premises within 14 days, or the work will be done by the city or its agents at the owner's cost. The first property is 254 Adderley Road, Giant Hogweed. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to 254 Adderley Road? Someone like to move the staff recommendation? Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 5387 Sunhaven Place, overgrown blackberry bushes. Is there anyone in attendance that wants to speak to matters related to 5387 Sunhaven Place? And seeing none, if you would like to. Second, moved and second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Unresolved building deficiencies, bylaw convention notices at 3651 Departure Bay Road. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to unresolved building deficiencies at 3651 Departure Bay Road. Staff recommendation that council by resolution instruct the manager of legislative services to file a bylaw contravention notice respecting 3651 Departure Bay Road, illegal construction, finished basement to include a secondary suite, and construct a two-story addition at the Land Title and Survey Authority of British Columbia under Section 57 of the Community Charter. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak to matters related to that site, 3651 Departure Bay Road? Seeing none, move the recommendation. Second, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Official Community Plan Amendment application OCP 67, general amendments. Staff recommendation that council receive the report and consider giving second reading as amended to Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 2012, number 6500.017, to remove Schedule D, Item 1C, which pertains to the designation of land located at 6780 Dickinson Road. And maybe that I could just continue on with the bylaw, and the bylaw 1 that council rescind the second reading of the Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 2012 65.017, and 2 that the Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 2012 number 6500.017 OCP 67 general text and map amendments to maintain the effectiveness and accuracy of the bylaw pass the second reading as amended. So let's start off with a note. Councillor Patrick,
Your Worship, I was under the understanding that we would have to receive the report first and then go into the bylaw because it's amended without item Schedule D, that being Dickinson Road. Am I incorrect on that?
Ms. Harrison?
That's correct. I believe we're now going back through the items one by one.
And then we'll do the bylaws. All right. So, on the staff recommendation, I see no questions. Would someone like to move the staff recommendation? And second? Good. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And bylaw 1, if someone would like to, I think we can move 1 and 2 together. Or do you want to do the
them separately, Your Worship.
Okay. So on 1, that council rescind the second reading of Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 2012 number 6500.017. Someone like to move that? Moved. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And 2, that the Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 2012 number 6500.017 OCP 67 general text and map amendments to maintain the effectiveness and accuracy of the bylaw pass second reading as amended. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Corporate Services, assessment role adjustments. Staff recommendation that council receive the report regarding the assessment role adjustments. Thank you. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Records Management Bylaw 2012 number 7150. Staff recommendation that council receive the report pertaining to Records Management Bylaw 2012 number 7150. Move the recommendation. Okay. And Bylaw 1. Well, this is the staff recommendation. And is there a seconder? Did you second that one too? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And 2, that Records Management Bylaw 2012 number 7150 pass second reading. Move. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And that Records Management Bylaw 2012 number 7150 pass third reading. Move. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into Regional District of Nanaimo Southern Search and Rescue Contribution Service Amendment Bylaw number 1552.01 2012. Staff recommendation that council waive the consent requirements under section 801.4 of the Local Government Act by consenting to the adoption of Regional District of Nanaimo Southern Community Search and Rescue Contribution Service Amendment Bylaw number 1552.01 2012, and that the Regional District of Nanaimo be notified accordingly. Move. And second. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Legal obligations regarding in-camera information. Staff recommendation that council receive the report. Legal obligations regarding in-camera information for information. Move.
I'm sorry, I'll second.
Okay, you can second it? You've got mover and seconder? Go ahead.
So, Your Worship, I would wish to make an amendment to receiving the report for information, and that being that, and direct staff to release the voting record at the time of releasing the public information.
Ms. Harrison?
I'm sorry, I need some clarification on that.
So
Could you
what
repeat the motion?
That we direct staff, so to receive the report for information.
It's an amendment then.
It's an amendment, and direct staff to release the voting record at the time of releasing the information of in camera to the public.
I'll second that motion for debate. There was a second before?
Okay, it's, the request is seriatim, so we'll do it in 1 and 2. So the first part will be, we can vote. Oh, Councillor McKay, did you have a, so on, and are you finished, Councillor Wesley?
No, there would be an opportunity for discussion and debate, Your Worship.
Okay. Councillor McKay?
Excuse me, Your Worship. I believe Councillor Bestwick was making an, oh, sorry, never mind.
Okay. Yes, but we're going to split it as, and do it seriatim at the
I'm
request.
not sure if we have a seconder for any of the motion at this point.
I thought we
Do have
did.
a seconder?
Yeah. We got them all? Well, we got Councillor McKay waiting, and then you push the button next. Councillor McKay.
Your Worship, right now, are we speaking on the original staff recommendation or the
We're going to do the originally,
second portion?
And then, well, we'll start with the first motion, which is on the floor, the staff recommendation as it is, and then the second, we'll deal with the second part, and I see these as two distinctly different ones, and that's to direct staff to release the voting record.
Sorry, Your Worship, just to clarify, we had a mover and a seconder for the staff recommendation, which was to receive the report, and now Councillor Bestwick has put forward an amendment to that motion. So I just would need to confirm if that was a friendly amendment to the original motion. Otherwise, we would be voting on an amendment to the motion, or it could be done as a completely separate motion, I think would be the option.
Well, I think Councillor Brennan, I believe, suggested this as a separate motion, did you not?
Well, the effect of it would be to have two separate votes, but
Which I would support.
yeah, but whatever Ms. Harrison recommends in terms of dealing with it, I'd be satisfied. I just want to be able to vote on both.
As separate motions, so that's whichever is fine.
Okay, so in to directly answer your question, Councillor McKay, we're going to deal now with the first item first, and then which is the staff recommendation, and then we'll have a question period on the second part to direct staff to release the voting.
Okay.
Let's start with the first part. There's several questions, and I don't know whether this is on part 1 or part 2. Okay, but there's some people on here. So you want to deal with 1 or 2? If it's 1, let's vote on this thing. And if it's 2, let's hear it now. So are you going to, Councillor Brennan, you're on it, and Councillor McKay?
No, I have nothing to say on the first.
Okay. So on the first motion, which is moved and seconded, that's the staff recommendation. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. On the second part, direct staff to release the voting record. Maybe, Ms. Harrison, if you could read it as you have it there.
That council directs staff to release the voting record at the time of releasing the in-camera information.
Okay, and it's been moved and seconded? No, I want to make sure that Ms. Harrison has that too. Yeah, I want to make sure that they have it too. Hello, that's what I'm saying. I know who may have seconded it. I want to make sure Ms. Harrison has that too. Go round and round and round in circles. So let's start on the second one then. All those in favor?
Wish to speak on that, Your Worship.
Okay, you're on there. Sorry, I thought it was from before. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to be speaking in favor of the motion, and we've recently we have voted in favor of continuing to expand how we communicate with the public. One of the things that we've been discussing of late is webcasting our committee of the whole meetings, And and I've taken some flack for it. We have voted in favor of hiring a communications manager, and the purpose of which is to get more information out to the public. And I believe that this is something that supports that. I wish, as an individual council member, as opposed to being part of a collective, I wish to have to be responsible and accountable for my decisions, both in camera and in the public view. So I'm voting I'm speaking in favor of this amendment or this motion.
Councillor Bestwick.
Your Worship, well, I would just echo the comments from Councillor McKay that each of us are elected by the members of our community, and not only just those decisions and votes that we make in the public realm in open. Once the items discussed in camera are released to the general public, I think it's our fundamental duty and responsibility to make that voting record public knowledge. And I'm not certain why, when we do have those discussions in camera, and we do have those votes in camera, when that information goes public, why the votes of those decisions that we make wouldn't follow suit. I think that if not all, the majority of it, every person at this table here tonight, and those other 25 or so that ran for council in November, did so on transparency. And for me and the general public, I think transparency is one of those topics that we are heavily criticized for not disclosing how we voted, good or bad, right or wrong, for the community to know how their representatives, their elected representatives, felt about significant topics in our community. There's a reason why we go in camera. I get that. I think all of us understand that, why we have to discuss certain topics and matters in camera. But once that information is released to the general public on decisions that have been made in months or weeks previous, then I think at the same time the record of voting should accompany. And for that is the reason why I know when I debate things in camera that I would fully anticipate that my record on how I stood on those issues, short of personnel and legal, would be made known to the general public.
So Your Worship, I heard Councillor Bestwick say excluding personnel and legal, so I think that should be part of the motion, because I think if you're intending to pass this motion, I was about to interrupt and recommend that you exclude things like appointments, because the release of names of who votes for appointments, I'm not sure you're intending to release as part of this, so I think you should be specific. If you want to exclude personnel items and legal items, you should do that in this motion.
But in the third L, which is land, you're not taking a position on that?
Well, Your Worship, I don't think this is appropriate for a blanket motion myself, but I'm not an elected decision maker. But I think that these should be dealt with individually by council, so you can weigh the merits of each one, whereas a blanket motion, I think, may send you on a path that you're not really intending.
Okay. Councillor Brennan.
I agree with the city manager. This is like what we're witnessing in Ottawa right now, is this omnibus thing, right? It's just push it through, don't think about the implications. And when the Office of Information and Privacy considered this very question, the order was that if you were going to, by releasing the vote, it would reveal the substance of the deliberations. And what it says is, whether a particular member of council voted for or against a particular motion would not only reveal the substance of the deliberations of council, but the exact deliberation itself. And I think that given that, that's the opinion of the Privacy and Information Officer, the individual who is charged with making these kinds of decisions throughout government. If that's the opinion, then I'm going with that opinion. And I think that when we release information, that we make a decision at that time based on the information. And if it's good enough for the Privacy Commissioner, it's good enough for me. It makes good sense to me.
Okay, Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Brennan made my comments. I was going to cite that on page 107, the Privacy Commissioner's quotes there as well. So I absolutely agree with my colleague.
Okay, Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think a point of clarification needs to be made here. The Privacy Commissioner in the report from staff was pointing to a particular case, where in that particular case, the divulging of the vote could have divulged the context of the discussions. As I understand this amendment, or this motion, when a decision is made to release information to the public, to take it out of camera, and only under that condition, because there's going to be certain items, as our city manager points out, that for reasons of the Privacy Act cannot be released. So we're not. I don't believe this suggests that we will release everything that's discussed in camera. There are things that must remain in camera. But when council approves an item going out to public, that this motion suggests that we also include the vote. There will be protected information. This is not carte blanche. This is only when council agrees that information can go out to the public.
The challenge I have, of course, is the motion, as I understand it, is carte blanche, to use someone else's phrase. And that's the problem I have with this particular motion, because, we can't have it apply to some issues and not to others. It has, if we're going to have a motion like this, it's going to apply to everything, and that's the concern I've got. And I don't know, Ms. Harrison, is there, from your standpoint, do you have a comment to make on how and why this is done as the...
I had the same concerns that were expressed by the city manager, that there may be some circumstances that it would not be appropriate to release the vote, and that council may not feel comfortable releasing the vote, particularly if it came to making an award or making council appointments, that type of thing.
Okay. Councillor Patchy. You're finished, Councillor McKay? Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. First, I need to make double sure that if this passed, that the three L's, labor, litigation, and land issues, would never be part of this.
Your Worship, the motion is a blanket motion, to my understanding. It covers all motions, whether they're, I requested a suggestion, or I made a suggestion that it be, that items be excluded, and that hasn't been taken up, so we're interpreting it as all-inclusive.
Okay, then secondly, Your Worship, on page 107, there is a reference made to Ellie Mina, probably Canada's most respected parliamentarian, who comments on this by saying, under the principles of collective decision-making and collective accountability, only the collective outcome is significant, not how each individual voted. And recording how each individual voted on a motion is generally not required. We spent a good afternoon with this gentleman maybe 4, 5, 6 months ago, and I respect him and I trust him implicitly. I also want to say that, I probably stand accused of not being as open and transparent as people want me to be if I don't vote for this. And I want the people of Nanaimo to know that not only during this council, also very much during the last council, I have never, ever found myself in a situation in camera at the Council of the City of Nanaimo where things were discussed that should not be discussed. And so for me, that is a non-issue. I do agree that there has to be something done that gets out those in-camera decisions at some point that can be released. And I hope that we'll have a report sooner rather than later, and I think staff is working on that, so I'm very much in favor of that. The reason I feel this way also has to do with the fact that on a number of occasions, once at this council and twice at the previous council, attempts were made to release the vote on one particular issue. And that becomes a tit-for-tat thing that I don't think is conducive to the collegiality and the partnership and the working together that a council has to be. And so, no, I'm sorry, I can't support it.
Okay, Councillor Kip.
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe the public has the right to know how we vote. We're independently elected. We're not a little huggy, warm, and fuzzy group all the time. We disagree with things, and people elect us sometimes for the reasons we disagree or the reasons we agree. I understand staff's concern with this, that when there is a possibility of further effect from an in-camera motion being released, that it needs to stay in camera. If there's a plausible effect, land, litigation, or labor, we disclose a lot of that when there's no further effect. The land has been taken care of or purchased, or the litigation is over and needs to be disclosed. I understand some people don't want to have the thing of how they voted for somebody on a committee, but we need to change how those committees are done anyhow. The process is phony at the best because we just put stickers or pick a name, so it's not even a real valid process with sometimes real, I'll say, broad brush application.
I have a bit of a challenge with the word phony, but I think...
Well, I mean, yeah, to me it is. I think we've discussed it, but that's my opinion.
Okay, let's deal with this issue.
So the concern with the collective decision, Eli Minna is a great man, I guess. He's been around for a long time, but these rules are needing to change. He's been purporting a 180-page book of rules, and they all vary, and there's no real clear rule. And when I read that statement, it says, under the principles of collective decision-making or collective government, only collective government is significant, not how each individual voted. So there's some insignificance to this about how we vote and how we see our community. So I believe if this motion has the piece that says with no further effect, or I don't know how we could, word that, I totally agree with it. So the public's right to know what we do, and especially when there's no further decision being made. Like the previous one that my dear friend Mr. Padgett brought up, it doesn't make for collegiate stuff. It was an argument. It was distrustful. It wasn't good. But that's okay in a relationship as long as we get over it and continue to deal. Not every relationship is warm and fuzzy. We need to argue a little bit. We need to show where we stand. And I believe when we do in camera, we've been accused of doing more in camera than any other community in BC. That's what I want to get over.
Okay, Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Bishop. I would just like to start by indicating that I agree 100% with Councillor Padgett that nothing that we have discussed in camera should not have been discussed in camera. I would concur with that on each and every occasion. But what the motion is attempting to do is to release the information of how we voted on those matters once that information is released to the public. And I would just further like to go on that in the third paragraph under 24, it indicates also that, however, as there is no legal requirement to withhold this information, council could resolve that the vote be released. So I suppose I could take a totally different perspective of this and say, everything that we discuss in camera will be released unless we vote not to, instead of nothing will be unless we vote to. So it can go, since there is no legal requirement, it can go either way. So we could sit here and say, we will be voting on what matters in camera that we won't release, not that we will release. So I don't know what would make, and in that sense, it will ensure that we pay attention to how we do what we do in camera, full well knowing that the information is going out unless we vote not to. So, as opposed to what we are dealing with right now, that nothing goes out.
Okay, Councillor Brennan.
Okay, well, let's start with the last thing first. Information in closed session is by definition closed and not going out. So you have to have a specific intent to move it out of closed. So what you suggested, Councillor Bestwick, that the reverse could happen is simply not, it's not true because it's in camera. So the only motion that you could make is to move it out of camera. The default is in camera. There has to be a specific intent. I don't know how I can explain it better than that. Well, I think everybody else understands. They're nodding their heads. So the comment with regard to the Information and Privacy Officer saying there's no legal requirement to withhold the information and council could resolve that the vote be released. That in effect is what I'm suggesting, is that there be that you look at each individual case, you judge it on its merits. I mean, I think that's what we're here to do, is to make judgments on the merits of things. This sort of everything shall become public and every vote shall become public doesn't address the concerns that the Privacy Commissioner brought up. And I think that's what we would do, is you would look at each individual case and you would make a decision based on the merit. I think Councillor McKay made that point. He said that he wanted to be able to look at things and tell people how he voted or take responsibility. And I think you would do that on a case-by-case basis. I think that the city managers made it quite clear that there are some certain things that are totally inappropriate to even release the information, and that would be personnel. I mean, that's quite clearly inappropriate. And legal, again, clearly inappropriate. And we only deal with, in private, personnel, legal, and with land, what's left? So really, I don't understand this. I get the impression there's some sort of political mischief being made here. And if we were, as a council, to determine on individual cases, then that would provide the remedy that Councillor McKay seeks, and that is that he be held responsible for his decisions. Same with Councillor Bestwick, wants to be held responsible for his decisions. Well, great. Let's do that. Let's look at the merits of things and decide if this is information that we need to put out into public.
Okay, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In regards to this issue, I couldn't agree more with Councillor Bestwick and Councillor McKay and what they say, that we want to be held accountable for the votes that we do. Everything that I voted for, I'd be absolutely fine with the public knowing. But having said that, I couldn't agree more with what Councillor Brennan has said, and that I don't agree with having an absolute blanket on every single issue. Because there are, since I've been on council, I have not felt that there's no reason for us to be in camera, and it's important that that information stays there for those particular issues. But when it comes to personnel and appointments and so on, I don't think that that information necessarily needs to come out. And there was a comment that came earlier that we're accused of being one of the municipalities that goes in camera too much, and accusations aren't fact. So I can't support the motion in the way that it is because it just tries to cover absolutely every single possibility for why we go in camera and releasing the votes on those things. But I would be absolutely fine as long as there is specifics as to why we're doing it. But with this motion, I will not be supporting it.
Okay. Well, I think we've been around the block a few times on this. I think everyone's had 2 and 3 times to say. Is anyone unable to make up their mind in the vote right now? And incidentally, I will be opposing this for the very same reason. I just think it's far too broad a motion. It doesn't protect a lot of the people and issues that should be protected, and I won't be able to support it.
Your Worship.
Okay. Is this to be very long? As long as you make it
No,
very
it's
short.
not. No. Can Ms. Harrison, can you please read the second part of this motion, please?
The council directs staff to release the voting record at the time of releasing the in-camera information.
Okay.
So my clarification is that we have to vote, just so I'm clear, we have to vote to release something. So when that decision is made, on this question, I'm asking, once we voted to release, all I'm voting on is that when we release, that we release the vote as well.
Do you have any?
No, I think staff well understands that, and I think all of the points of view have been aired on both sides.
Okay. So let's call a question on that. On the motion, all those in favor? Councillor Bestwick, Councillor Kipp, and Councillor McKay. Opposed? We have Councillor Anderson, Councillor Patchy, Mayor Ratan, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Greaves, Councillor Brennan. The motion defeated. Move into Citizenship and Immigration Canada office closures. Staff recommendation that Council adopt the following resolution regarding Citizenship and Immigration Canada office closures for the submission to the Union of British Columbia Municipalities for consideration at their 2012 convention. Whereas Citizenship and Immigration Canada offices in Nanaimo, Victoria, Kelowna, and other regional communities have been closed, and the Vancouver office will not be available to immigrants and the community for in-person service, and whereas BC is the 3rd largest receiving province of immigrants, yet will not be represented with a head office in this province. Therefore, be it resolved that the Union of British Columbia Municipalities urge the federal government to reconsider these changes, which will have such a negative effect on communities around the country and on Canada's place in the competitive market for attracting immigrants.
Move staff's recommendation.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Community Services, Nanaimo Lantzville Emergency Water Connection Agreement Extension. Staff recommendation of Council authorize the Mayor and the Manager of Legislative Services to extend the existing emergency water connection agreement between the City of Nanaimo and the District of Lantzville for a further 5 years. And I am in conflict on this matter of water. So before the vote is taken, if someone would like to move it and then second it, and the acting mayor, Councillor Greaves, will now step over and carry on.
Thank you, Worship. I'll move the recommendation once the mayor leaves the room. There you go. Recommendation moved to extend the agreement.
Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Any discussion? We'll vote on it. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion's carried.
Right, Mayor?
There he is.
No, sorry.
I couldn't even get it.
Go to the washroom. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Greaves. Moving into the approval of landscaping requests for proposals, RFP. Staff recommendation that Council 1 award the contracts for RFP 1304 landscape services for neighbourhood collectors, minor collectors and local roads. RFP 1325 landscape services for arterial, major collectors and highways, and RFP 1326 landscape maintenance for facilities to ACR Acer Landscaping Limited, and 2, award the contract for RFP 1324 Parks, Turf and Open Space Landscape Maintenance to Strain Landscapes Limited. Move secondation. Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That's 1 and 2, just for clarification. And C, approval of invitation to tender 1312 watering, number rather, 1312 watering services for street planters, hanging baskets, trees, and boulevards. Staff recommendation that council award the contract for watering services to street planters, hanging baskets, trees, and boulevards to Lone Pine Horticulture for the low bid price of $317,741.76, including HST. Second. Discussion, Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. Well, I have serious concerns about this. Isn't hundreds of dollars. This is hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we're talking about a precious commodity that we've heard about again tonight at the podium, about water. And we've heard about quantity of water that we may or may not find ourselves in, and making a statement and being leaders in participating in blue communities, whether it's just a small portion of, but it's more the message and the messaging about how we conduct our business and our affairs. And when I see that over a 10-year period, so I would have to make an assumption that over the previous 10-year period of watering, hanging baskets, and planters, that we have collectively spent probably in the neighborhood of $1 million. And we will continue to spend over the course of the next 10 years another $1 million in a watering season in our climate that I suspect is 4 months or 5 months, I'm just guessing. And we've increased this beyond $250,000 or $250,000 over 3 years, so that it comes to before us to have to vote on. And I wonder about conservation. I wonder about waste. I wonder about economies. I wonder about sustainabilities. If we have rain barrels that we collect these waters from that are in massive sizes that are lifted up onto the back of a truck in order to provide rainwater as opposed to using treated water to water hanging baskets. So it's a lot of money to me to spend. Also, when I think of where the majority of these baskets and things are, I assume is downtown, then I would like to suggest that the Downtown Nanaimo Business Improvement Association and merchants care for those beautifications that are within their store frontages or otherwise. And so it causes me pause when I think that there's artificial things out there that look every bit as nice for every bit as long. So I wonder, we've added 105 hanging baskets. That is among some weeding around trees in the downtown core or wherever that is, that has escalated this to a significant number now. It might not have been as significant a number and as significant a topic about water, but to me, now it is. And it takes on a totally different perspective for me about water. So I cannot support a $325,000 expenditure for a 4-month season of watering of hanging baskets when I think that there's alternatives that would be every bit as appropriate, be it artificial hanging baskets.
Your Worship, I don't dispute that it's a lot of money. I do want to say, though, that this is based on our current service levels currently provided in the financial plan. Council has requested a staff report on service levels related to landscaping, and that'll be coming forward in the next couple of meetings. These contracts can be adjusted if Council decides to amend the service level. Naturally, we would cut back on the contractor and spend less money. So there is a debate, I presume, coming on service levels for landscaping that will be part of, I presume, raised as discussion related to the upcoming report.
Okay, Mr. Kenyon, there's a number of questions here, but if I can just ask you, there's been suggestions that this may primarily be for the downtown, and certainly that might be accurate, but really this budget does not cover all of Nanaimo.
Absolutely, but I think it is true that the majority
would be
of
downtown.
plantings are downtown. There are hanging baskets on Brecken as well, and there's street trees that are also watered, but majority of the landscaping, expensive landscaping is in the downtown.
Okay. Councillor Kip.
Thank you. I hope our standards are all low maintenance and that we have local indigenous planting. I would prefer to see natural plants, but the water issue is huge. Our strategic plan, one of the key issues is water conservation, and that's the part of it. And I mean, even I was walking through town the other day and saw a planter just, the planter hose just dripping with no plant under it, drip, drip, dripping away. We walked through the city and saw it. I noticed that stuff. So the water's a precious commodity. It's treated water, and it, you know, I mean, I think it sounds like an expensive contract at $100,000 a year to water for the downtown. We seem to be, like, I'm not certain this is, I would like in these reports too that they are tied together. This is part of the downtown, so DNBIA money and all that ties into it. I like the beautification, but is it valuable now still in this economy? It's a tough one for me. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. It's a tough one for me as well, though I'll support it. But would staff have the numbers available for the last 3 years? How much did we pay?
In the Mayor Ratan, in the last term, we are expecting that the contract would come in for a 3-year period under $250,000. And this one, if you take off HST, is about $280,000. So we are in the neighborhood of about $80,000 per year, and we're now getting into the $90,000 to almost $95,000 per year cost.
And Mr. Hickey, could you tell us where the water comes from that's being used for the water?
The water is city water, so it is treated water. They would do generally a bulk fill at either the parks yard or the public works yard.
Thank you.
Just on that matter of HST, Mr. Kenyon, is there recovery for us on that? I mean, it's obviously a huge amount based on that figure, but I believe we are able to effect a recovery on it, so it's not quite as onerous as it would appear.
That's correct. When the HST was instituted, I believe the government made the rule for municipalities that we were to be no worse off than under the previous tax regime, so there is a rebate.
Okay. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. What I understand from staff is that Council asked for a report. Council is expecting a report, and we know that it's coming in, pretty soon. And that report is going to review the standards and make some suggestions for the standards, and I'm sure that if we eventually adopt the strategic plan, and that our staff report and the standards will be based on water in the strategic plan and the goals that we have set there. So if we know that, if we remembered that we had asked for that and anticipated it, we would take that and apply it to what Mr. Kennings told us, and that is if we amend the standards, we can, the contract is written in such a way that we can amend the contract. So I don't see any downside here. I don't see that we've ignored water. I don't think we've ignored the strategic plan. And built into this is a method whereby we can respond to that via the contract. So I support this because it seems very reasonable and flexible and takes into account. And in fact, it's something that the council asked for in the first place.
Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be supporting staff's recommendation tonight based on the fact that the hanging baskets are already in place, and it's not only the baskets, but it's trees and boulevards, and for me it's all about quality of pride of place, and I just think that we have asked for the report, and the parks manager today said that this may not be sustainable, and he's going to be making recommendations for future. So for tonight's recommendation, I fully support it, Your Worship.
Okay. I kind of, I support it as well myself. And, one of the concerns I have is a number of brownfields around Nanaimo, gas stations primarily that closed, and they're a terrible eyesore. I'd hate to think the whole city's going to look like that. but that remains to be seen. Also, I think I might just remind everyone too that our primary street in town, Commercial Street, was recognized as the greatest street in Canada, and I would suggest that flowers and trees contributed to that decision, and to eliminate them, I think, would be regrettable. Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues today about the mound out in front of Frank Crane Arena at Bevan Park, and that is, I used to enjoy it when it was flowering, and now that it doesn't flower and there's hay put out there and displays and so on and so forth, there are no flowers there. I thought, oh well, I kind of miss it, but that's okay. I can live with that. My concern is that I was speaking to a member of the public last night who's been trying for 2 years now to get a safe way to escape her property directly across from Frank Crane Arena. They are accessed by Bowen Road and a laneway, and when it snows, there's no plowing of their laneway. We refuse to plow their laneway, and we plow up against the road and up the sidewalk. They cannot get out their front, and they wonder how ambulance and so on and so forth are going to get in and out of their fire. My concern, I would rather reduce this, do this on a month-to-month basis for this year until we get the new standard report, and I would really like to dedicate those funds, these funds, to helping folks like that out. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kipp.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. There's a couple of comments, Councillor Brannan, that we have requested a report, but before the report, we're willing to make a 3-year decision, and that's concerning to me. And then I heard from Councillor Johnson that she had talked to staff, and staff was saying that this might not be sustainable, and they were bringing forward a report on this. So we're making a decision now on a 3-year with the ability to get in and out of it, but it's almost like we're promising the guy a 3-year contract, and then we're going to come yank it out from under him. We have done with many things. We have delayed them month over month over month. Our towing contract, I think, went on for about 6 or 7 months on a month-to-month contract. Different contracts, when we're re-looking at them and reassessing them, they go on month to month after they expire. I have some experience at that. I've seen it. So for me, while we're waiting for a report, I think we've had other things. We were waiting for a Blue Communities report, so we held off on our decision. And we're waiting for an important staff report on water and money. And so I can't support moving the contracts forward right now until we have that report in front of us to make a decision. We could do this month to month at the existing rate. And I think then once we have that report that we have requested, we've asked for this report, now we're making decisions before staff is doing the report. So I can't support the motion as it exists.
Okay, Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. Just given the fact that the report is coming forward within the next couple of meetings, is what I understand. So just to echo the sentiments of Councillor Kipp, that is it accurate that should we approve this tonight, that the contract will be written as such that we have the ability to change said contract if the standards of services are altered, amended, or changed?
Yes, that's accurate.
That's accurate, thank you. And when we talk about commodities, being water being one of them, dollars and cents follow very closely behind or water. And so this is about commodities. This is about how we spend, and this is about how one of the ways in which we do what we do. And this is not an insignificant amount of money. So that is what has prompted me to wish to wait until such time as the report comes back in a couple of weeks, or not comes back, but that is presented. And at that point in time, we can make the decision whether or not this is worth retaining in status quo. So I will be not supporting the motion.
Okay, that seems to be all the questions. Mr. Kenning, can you maybe deal with this matter of the report that's due? I mean, there is obviously some confusion on it and some concern. Should we be deliberating this thing right now and then we get the report? If we're going to debate this thing right now, then why is staff spending all that money developing a report after the fact?
Well, as I explained, Your Worship, we believe we need to keep on with business. Yes, the service levels are going to be reviewed. That doesn't necessarily mean they'll be changed, but we believe that the contract is structured in a way that if council does change the service levels, that you'll be able to do that within the contract. So we believe the two can proceed in this order. So that's why we're recommending it.
All right. So.
When did this contract expire?
Chat?
No, when did this, is it still in place now, or has the previous years expired?
You'll recall when we put in the request for proposals initially, we've restructured our contract so that one landscaper is doing more regularly a territory or an area or a certain activity like watering and these plantings. So this is a new way to divvy up all the work.
Okay, well, when was the old undivvied up work finished? When did that contract expire, and how long has it taken us to get to this point?
That was expired of this last year, so 2011. These would be a new round of contracts.
Also, just at the end of the year it would have expired?
Yeah, I don't have the specific day, and we could.
Yeah, December 31st or something. Thank you.
Just for clarification on this, and then we're going to vote, because I think that's everyone. Mr. Kenny, you can confirm then that this amount that we're looking at, this $317,000 figure, is not a commitment. It's an indication. But Council, the contract you're assuring us will be written in such a way that it can be changed, and we're not going to be obliged to honor that total amount necessarily.
It's a commitment to this contractor. So this contractor would do the work, but the amount of work can vary. For example, in next year's financial plan, council may increase or decrease the service level, and that's one of the beauties of contracts is that you have the flexibility to change service levels. So that's correct.
Okay. So, question on the motion. The staff recommends the council award the contract, which is before you, and so we'll ask all those in favour. Opposed? We have Councillor Bestwick, Councillor Kipp, and Councillor McKay opposed. Balance council in favour. Am I getting a nod on it? Is it accurate? Okay. Moving on to bylaws with no accompanying report. 11A, that zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.014 ZA 1-51 to rezone the R1 portion of the old city neighborhood from R1 to R1B in order to create a subzone to reduce the allowable height of secondary suites in accessory buildings and to eliminate the lot size reduction for lots abutting a laneway be adopted. Move and second. I see no discussion. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carried. You agree? Okay. That zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.017 to permit containers as an accessory use for temporary periods in all zones and to allow the temporary storage of tools and materials during construction for which a required building permit has been obtained be adopted. Move. Second. I see no discussion. All those in favour? Opposed? We have Councillors Anderson, Councillor McKay, and Councillor Kipp opposed. Balance council in favour. The motion passes. That sign amendment bylaw 2012 number 7149 to reference the new zoning designations within the recently adopted zoning bylaw number 4500 and to update all other bylaw references be adopted. Move the recognition. Second. I'll second it. Okay. Discussion. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. That zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.018 to allow for the display of vehicles for sale within the railway corridor as an accessory use to an adjacent car dealership past third reading. Okay. Sorry. Let's get a mover and seconder on that one. Move and second. Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. I'll be voting for this after I received confirmation from staff that taxes will be paid on that portion of the Island Corridor Foundation's land that is going to be used by car displays, and also that in general terms the signage bylaws of the city would be adhered to, and that we should not be expecting anything too permanent in that particular area. Am I correct on that, Mr. Tucker?
Yes, Your Worship, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kemp.
Yeah, Your Worship, this one's starting to concern me a bit. That zoning that we have for the corridor is one contiguous piece of property. We don't seem to have borders drawn into this, although the representative from the foundation said that we thought it was in between. You can go there now and see Kias for miles. Are we going to see boats? Are we going to see bags of stuff out there when people start to say, well, I want to use that space? There's marine dealers down the street. There's all sorts of stuff on that piece of property. It's contiguous. There's no borders built into this. They say they're working on it, but we're passing something here now that's borderless. That they could put Kias all the way down that stretch anywhere they want. I'm just using that because that's in the agenda here. So this concerns me. It's not tight enough for me, right? And so I can't support it as it stands currently.
Hey, just maybe staff could elaborate, but what I'm reading, Councillor Kipp, and your point's valid, but it says here, within the rail corridor, as an accessory use to an adjacent car dealership.
Your Worship, I can relate to the word adjacent if I can. I passed a motion 15 years ago about speed zones adjacent to a school, that they be dropped to 30. And if you go by different schools, that adjacent means different. Solaire, it goes from the mall past the school. Uplands isn't even on Uplands, and they got that, the adjacent speedway. So that word adjacent can really expand and contract. And it would be more to me, instead of adjacent to, because adjacent could be the next property. Because when I say lot 10 and the adjacent lot 11, it's adjacent to it. So it spreads it. So the word adjacent, to me, it would mean directly in front of. If I could change that to directly in front of, used to directly in front of the dealership, I would be happy.
Okay, Mr. Tucker, can you answer us directly with that? Supply the answer?
Could you be direct?
Yes, Your Worship. The wording was prepared by the city solicitor and means immediately adjacent to the permitted use of car dealership. If the adjoining property, for example, was a lumber yard, you would not be allowed to display vehicles in front of that lumber yard. It's strictly for the areas in front of the car dealerships.
Your Worship, and just to say that Mr. Tucker is dealing with this bylaw. However, I do think that there is a strong potential that other retailers adjacent to the railway, former railway, that sell other products may say to you in the future, you allow car dealers to put their cars on, I want to put my boats on, or I want to put my hot tubs on, so I'd like you to let me do that too. So you will get the argument that this does set a precedent, but I think you're all likely aware of that.
Okay. Councillor, are you on or off?
I'll just comment since I was on.
Okay.
Graham Bruce made it very clear when he was here as a delegate at the last meeting that it would be the frontage parcels only. So I absolutely support this one. If that, and they're going to be the authority who regulate this?
No, this is regulated by the city, and I'd strongly recommend that you listen to Mr. Tucker on this issue because it's a bylaw drafted by his people, not Mr. Bruce's.
Okay, thank you.
But staff is supporting this recommendation.
Yes, but it doesn't necessarily apply to vehicles only just in front. It applies to adjacent.
Okay. And then we have Councillor Kipp's concern about the word adjacent. Okay. Councillor Brennan?
Yes, thank you. I asked Mr. Bruce if the Island Corridor Foundation would be willing to sign an agreement, make an agreement that specified that. We don't want to do that, or?
I think that would be great, but this bylaw doesn't require that. They can do that if they choose to do that or not.
Help me out with this, because sometimes we ask staff to secure certain things before we approve the bylaw. Could we do that in this instance?
In my view, not the way this bylaw is worded, because that's somewhat contrary to this bylaw. I think that it's appropriate, actually, that council's taken the position that they're allowing these uses adjacent, and it's up to the Corridor Foundation to make the decision about how they're going to allocate it between neighbors. That's a decision for them. They're the property owner, not a decision for you. You say the land use is okay.
Because we're just talking about land use, not what's on that land, whether it's a boat or a car.
Well, we're saying it has to be a car, but we're not saying, we're saying the land use of a car is okay, but we're not discriminating between who the operator is. That's up to the owner to decide who he wants to rent it to.
Okay, we see no further questions on this. So on the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Kipp? Opposed? Balance of council in favor. The motion passes. Mercy. So we'll move on to item E, that zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.021, RA 289 to rezone 994 Park Avenue from single residential dwelling R1 to single residential dwelling small lot R2 to permit a 45 lot subdivision past third reading. Moved. Second. Councillor Brennan, did you, no comment on it? So Councillor Anderson, you're on then.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question to staff. This is still subject to the community contribution that has to be made, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay. On the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Overleaf, item 12 has been dealt with already, and council appointments are none, so we move down to notice of motion number 14. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. Just a notice of motion that council direct staff to schedule in-camera council meetings for 9:30 a.m. on regular council meeting days, with agenda briefings to follow, and that such meetings be held in the boardroom at City Hall. I'll be bringing that forward in 2 weeks.
Okay. That we're obviously not deciding tonight because this is a notice of motion, and that'll be discussed and debated at the next council meeting. Other business, Councillor Brennan, notice of motion re-welcome reception, and at the regular meeting of council held 2012, May 28th, Councillor Brennan advised that she'll be bringing forward the following motion for council's consideration.
That mayor and council host an annual citizenship welcome reception for new immigrants, and that the Social Planning Advisory Committee be tasked with...
Sorry. Yeah, I need Per over here to work on this goofy thing here. Sorry, continue on.
Okay. And that the Social Planning Advisory Committee be tasked with planning the event with a budget of $2,000. And if there's a seconder, I'll speak to it.
6 zeros.
No. But this is here now, though, isn't it?
Real motion now.
We're on? Okay.
Now
Okay.
it's real.
Good.
Yeah.
So, oh, you're not on?
No, I
Okay.
spoke already.
I'm on.
Oh, Councillor Anderson, are you? So, Councillor McKay, you're next, then Councillor Anderson, accordingly to
Thank
my-
you, Worship.
my limping machine
Your
here.
Worship, I said if I get a seconder, then I will speak to it. Could I speak
Certainly,
to
you
it,
go ahead.
introduce it?
I'm
why,
sorry.
give the
Your name was
rationale?
lost on here. I apologize for that.
That's okay. That's fine. The reason that I brought this forward was that we do have a number of immigrants, new immigrants to Nanaimo every year, and I think that they are a real asset to this city. They're for a variety of reasons, and I won't go into it. But I've been to workshops with new immigrants, and they've told me that there are lots of times when they don't feel included, and they feel somewhat excluded in our community. Through no fault of ours, but just, you know, we haven't made positive steps to welcome them. When we had the cultural advisor here a couple of months ago, whose name escapes me, I think Diana probably knows it. We had the day-long workshop with him. Gordon
Gordon Hume.
Hume from, he had been a councillor in London, Ontario, and I asked him how London had gone about ensuring cultural diversity in their city. And one of the ways was this. He said that mayor and council hosted twice a year a welcome reception. I talked to Hildy Schlosser from the Multicultural Society, and she thought that the number of immigrants that we have to Nanaimo would warrant only one reception. She was very excited that we were talking about it. And I talked to Mr. Kenning and asked him where he thought the appropriate committee was to develop the plan for it. And he thought the Social Planning Committee was the appropriate committee. And he thought that a budget of $2,000 would be an appropriate number. So those ideas weren't just lifted out of a hat. So that's my rationale for this.
Okay. We do have 3 more speakers, but I just like to...
No, that's a motion.
That's a motion itself,
You
yeah.
made
The notice of the motion was last week, yeah. But I just like to support Councillor Brennan's motion on this one. And for the reason that I'm very disappointed that the government, the federal government, has seen fit to terminate citizenship and immigration offices. And I know that I went on a number of occasions to the citizenship court when it was held in Nanaimo. We would welcome anywhere from 50 to 200 people. And the local MPs were there, the local MLAs were there, and I was there representing the city. And it was a great opportunity to actually meet and shake hands with every applicant who has become a Canadian citizen. And, you know, the Zonta Club, I think it was, put on food sources and so on, and food supplies rather, and it was just really a nice, friendly meeting, and that it's been terminated, I think, is reprehensible, and I really do hope the provincial, or rather the federal government, will reconsider. But I think this is the least we could do, and thank you for bringing that forward. Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Your Worship. I attended the Connect VI conference this weekend put on by the young professionals, and one of the speakers there suggested that people immigrating to Canada and to British Columbia are absolutely critical to our future. And so I am absolutely in support of this. I will be there as a citizen to welcome them. I will be there as a business person to welcome them, and as a city councillor to welcome them. Absolutely in support of this.
Good for you. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question for Councillor Brennan. Is this just including people who've just come here, or is this also including people who've just become new Canadians?
No, it's intended to welcome new immigrants within the calendar year. So presumably people who are going through the citizenship ceremony have been here long enough to establish citizenship. This would be to meet and greet new immigrants within the calendar year.
Okay. Well, to add to that, I'm completely supportive of this. My parents came here in the late 80s, and there wasn't anything like that at the time, and I think that it's really important that we do welcome new immigrants into the country, and I may not have been here be sitting at this table had people not recognize the importance of new immigrants, so I'm fully supportive of this.
Councillor Kipp.
Thank you. Absolutely supported. I was living in Europe over my lifetime, sort of immigrated there, and it's a tough hole. It was down the States. This is a really important thing. I, too, have attended the citizenship things. I'm so disappointed our government is closing those offices. I think it's great that Councillor Brennan brought this forward. Totally support it. I think it's an excellent thing. But my question was, is it for the people within the calendar year and they come? I think it's hugely important, so I support it.
Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be 100% in support of this motion as well. I know I've attended many of the functions you've had at City Hall, Your Worship, where you've welcomed new immigrants to our city, and we have, as a council and mayor, shown how the city does their business, and they were very gracious and thankful for that opportunity. And I think that this is an excellent suggestion by colleague Brennan, and I hope that we go forward with it.
I agree. Totally agree. Councillor Patsy.
Thank you, Worship. Well, having been an immigrant myself way back when, I can't tell you enough how important it is to have the kind of support services that the Immigration Welcome Centre gives that certainly were not around when I applied for citizenship in 1966, I think it was,
Wow.
and where I had to deal with a cranky old judge who asked me questions about mineral deposits in Saskatchewan and Samuel de Champlain and a whole bunch of other things. No, it wasn't easy. But I concur with the mayor. I had the privilege of sitting in for him once about 2 years ago at one of these citizenship ceremonies, and they are just amazing things, and those people need to be supported, especially since that's not going to happen here anymore, since it is moving to Vancouver. So I'm very happy to support it.
That's it. So, on the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We move into question period now, agenda items only.
Ron Boland, 3165 King Richard Drive, and I just want to follow up a bit on the legal obligations regarding in-camera information. I understand this was provided to you as information. Will there be a policy? I believe there was discussion that there would be a policy coming forth on this matter. Is that still the case? And if so, when might it be expected?
Mr. Kenny, what's your interpretation?
Your Worship, Ms. Harrison probably will have more to say, but I just do want to say that the report, I think, talks about the fact that staff will be making a recommendation on each in-camera item on a process by which staff would see that item coming forward, if indeed it comes forward, or a comment that it wouldn't be coming forward at all.
Okay.
So that's.
Is there a timeline on it?
We've commenced that effective immediately.
Okay.
Okay, just one other question for clarification with regard to Councillor Bestwick's failed motion. What, if anything, do the stipulations in the community charter that separate those items which must go to in-camera and those that may? And I believe that probably 95 or more % of those things that are handled by you in camera are in the may category. And I think there is a significant difference between may and must.
Ms. Harrison, do you have a view on that for us?
Your Worship, Section 90 sub 1 references the items where a part of a council meeting may be close to the public, and then Section 90 sub 2 references those items that where it must be close to the public. And the distinction in a lot of cases is that most of the items in Section 90 sub 1 tend to come out of in camera at some point. So an appointment to a committee, that type of thing. So we're not, council is not needing to keep it in camera forever, that they can make their deliberations in camera, make a decision, and then it automatically comes out of in camera for the actual appointment. So it's those types of things. And there may be some situations where discussion of these types of items may be appropriate to hold in an open meeting. So there certainly is a distinction. The types of items that where it must be closed to the public, if council were the head under freedom of information, protection of privacy, those would have to be considered in camera. That's not the case here for council. Dealing with negotiations between municipality and provincial government or federal government, those types of discussions must be held in camera. There's a few other examples, but there definitely is a distinction. But as I say, I think the difference is for the items under 90 sub 1, they tend to start off in camera, and then just by their nature, they go open as part of the process. So purchasing property, those types of things.
Okay.
So if I understood that, the policy would deal primarily with that, and the other items come up after 15 years. Is that, am I thinking that correctly, that they are available after, anything is available after 15 years?
I think you're referring to a section under Freedom of Information, Protection of Privacy. There is a section that deals with the length of time for, I'd have to get the right terminology, but you're right. Just for
And some are 10
clarification.
years. I couldn't quite follow that.
Just for clarification on the policy, I think what you're actually referring to are one of the recommendations from the Reports and Meetings Working Group that Council has already adopted. And that recommendation that was adopted, when was it? The April, I think it was in April 2nd meeting, that all in-camera staff reports include clarification of what aspects of the report are confidential and what the impact of release would be, and the process by which the topic of the report will be released from in-camera or not, and B, a recommendation in that regard, i.e. that the topic be included in a future open staff report, that the report be posted on the city's website, that staff be directed to prepare a media release, that the topic remain in camera pending future staff reports, that the topic will not be released from in-camera. So the report that was on tonight's agenda is an example of that, where the recommendation in camera was to receive the report in camera and then put it on an open council meeting. So we are actually implementing that now, and we'll be working towards ensuring that the staff reports that go in camera have additional information for council to consider with regard to the release of that information.
I'm a bit perplexed about the reasoning that the report itself, which gives nothing away, would have to be handled in a in-camera meeting before it comes to open council.
Your Worship, the purpose of holding that, presenting that report initially in camera was because of the discussion that we felt may accompany that report.
Would that come under 91 or 92?
Your Worship, could I ask the delegation to address the chair?
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Okay, yeah, thank you. You're correct. I'm sorry.
Is that it?
Yes, I'm not sure that I received a response to
I'm
whether
not
it was
sure
under
either.
91
To
or
which
92.
question you had, I'm not sure which one. You'd have to answer us whether you got a response that you're happy with. I'm not sure which question you're referring to.
No, I asked.
We had debated this
if
thing
the
for about half an
in-camera-
hour, so I
if the
wondered if there's
decision
something
to
you
be
missed.
in camera about the report itself was in camera under section 90.1 or section 90.2.
I think it was 90.1 that Ms. Harrison referred to.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, okay.
Mr. Bowens, do you have any information on the number of in-camera meetings that different jurisdictions hold?
I don't in other jurisdictions. I know that I did a graph for the blog that shows ours just going up like that. That we're up to, if we kept that up, we'd be at 30.1 or 35 over the year. And I noticed that we're pre-scheduling them now, which I find curious, that we are finding items from 90.1 or 90.2 in virtually every council, before every council meeting, when, you know, for years we went by with 2 or 3 of those a year. And suddenly we're up in the skies.
Your Worship, one of the things that happened this last evening is that you announced that I received the Long Service Award. Well, I have been with the city for 25 years, and I can tell you that, in my opinion, the number of in-camera meetings has not increased one iota over 25 years. Council has always met on a regular basis in camera at the same time as council meetings.
I got that information by going through the city's website and doing a simple information request on in-camera and by year, and doing that count. So either they aren't in our agendas or minutes, or, you know, they have been rising very rapidly.
Okay, thank you, sir. See, yes. Okay. We stand adjourned. Thank you very much.